It never starts as addiction. If it did, you'd run. It starts as relief. You meet her at a moment when your life feels heavy. Not broken, just heavy. Work is draining. Nights feel longer. Your phone is full, but nothing feels worth opening. And then suddenly, there she is. She listens. She laughs at your jokes. She texts back fast. And without realizing it, your nervous system exhales for the first time in months. That's how it begins. Not with obsession, not with desperation, but with calm. And calm is addictive when you've been stressed for too long. At first, it feels healthy. You're happier, more motivated. You sleep better. You work harder. You even feel more confident walking into rooms. Your brain quietly links all of that improvement to one thing: her presence. That connection forms fast, faster than you expect. Because the male brain isn't wired to fall slowly when emotional validation suddenly appears. Especially if you've spent years being strong, silent, and self-reliant. Especially if no one has asked how you're really doing. She does. And that question alone becomes a hook. You don't notice the shift at first, but something subtle changes. Your mood starts syncing with her availability. A good text from her lifts your entire day. A delayed reply puts a weight in your chest you can't explain. You tell yourself it's normal. You tell yourself it's love. But love doesn't hijack your emotional regulation. Addiction does. Here's what's actually happening beneath the surface. Every interaction releases dopamine, the same chemical involved in gambling, alcohol, and social media addiction. But love adds something stronger: oxytocin. That's the bonding hormone. The one that tells your brain, this is safety. Your brain doesn't distinguish between emotional safety and survival safety. To it, they're the same. So now, her attention isn't just pleasant. It's necessary. Still, you don't feel weak. You feel alive. That's the trap. Because addiction never announces itself as dependence. It disguises itself as meaning. You begin to look forward to moments instead of building days. The future becomes a series of emotional check-ins rather than personal goals. When she's happy with you, life feels aligned. When she's distant, everything feels off, even things unrelated to her. That's not romance. That's emotional outsourcing. You stop noticing how often you check your phone, how often your thoughts circle back to her tone, her words, her reactions. You replay conversations, analyze pauses, decode emojis, like they carry hidden messages. Your mind is no longer quiet when she's gone. That's the first sign. Love should expand your life. Addiction shrinks it. But because society romanticizes obsession, you don't question it. Movies taught you that losing yourself is proof of depth. Songs taught you that longing is passion. So when you start abandoning your routines, neglecting friendships, or losing interest in things that once mattered, you don't see it as erosion. You see it as devotion. And devotion feels noble. Until the balance shifts. She becomes the source of emotional regulation, stress relief, validation, excitement, purpose, identity. One person cannot carry all of that weight, but your brain doesn't care. Because unpredictability strengthens addiction. When her affection becomes inconsistent, sometimes warm, sometimes distant, the dopamine spikes even harder. The uncertainty makes your brain chase her attention the way a gambler chases the next win. That's when you start trying harder. You become more agreeable, more patient, more accommodating. You start adjusting your behavior to preserve the connection. You overlook things that bother you. You minimize your own needs. Not because you lack strength, but because emotional focus quietly shifts priorities. Your mind begins repeating subtle thoughts. If I phrase this better, if I don't mention this, things will stay smooth. If I lose her, I lose how I feel inside. Notice that last line. You're no longer worried about losing her. You're worried about losing the emotional balance she brings. That's the turning point. Love says, I choose you. Attachment says, I rely on you. And reliance slowly turns into tension. You don't realize how much of yourself you've invested until you try to step back. Maybe you look for reassurance. Maybe you voice discomfort. Maybe you establish a boundary. And suddenly, the connection feels delicate. Her tone shifts. Her energy changes. The warmth fades. Your chest tightens. Not because the relationship is ending, but because your sense of emotional stability feels shaken. Emotional imbalance doesn't look dramatic. It looks like unease, overthinking, restlessness, a constant pull to reconnect. Your mind is searching for balance, and it believes that balance comes from one place. That's why separation doesn't just hurt, it disrupts your inner rhythm. You're not only missing a person, you're adjusting to a pattern that once kept you steady. That's why nights feel long, why mornings feel hollow, why logic struggles against emotion. You're not broken. You're human. And here's what most men aren't told. This pattern forms fastest in people who are disciplined, independent, and emotionally contained. Because when someone finally gets past that armor, the relief feels profound. You didn't fall because you were weak. You fell because you finally felt at ease, and that ease felt like home. The risk isn't loving deeply. The risk is letting love replace your inner foundation. Healthy love strengthens a grounded self. Unbalanced love replaces it. The difference is subtle, but everything depends on it. Ask yourself honestly, do you feel calm on your own or only when she's present? Do you feel complete alone or only when connected? Do you choose her or fear losing how she makes you feel? Those answers reveal the truth. Here's the realization many men reach too late. When love becomes unbalanced, you don't lose the relationship first. You lose yourself first. Your standards soften. Your boundaries blur. Your identity shifts from rooted to relational. You begin organizing your life around the relationship instead of living within your own direction. Eventually, the imbalance surfaces. Either she feels pressured, or you feel overlooked, or quiet resentment builds. Because no one wants to be the sole source of someone else's emotional stability. That role weakens connection. Ironically, the more you rely on her, the less secure the bond feels. So, how do you recognize the difference early? Love feels steady. Imbalance feels urgent. Love is comfortable with space. Imbalance struggles with it. Love honors individuality. Imbalance fears distance. Love grows gradually. Imbalance rises fast and falls hard. If you're honest, you sensed the shift before you named it. That moment when your mood became reactive, when approval felt essential, when peace depended on connection. Awareness is where freedom begins. Not distance, not emotional coldness, not shutting down. Freedom comes from rebuilding inner stability. Your calm should come from purpose, discipline, structure, and self-trust, not from another person's presence. When you become emotionally grounded on your own, love changes. It stops being something you depend on and becomes something you choose. That's when love feels powerful, not consuming. That's when you don't cling, you connect. And that kind of love doesn't diminish men. It strengthens them, because real love doesn't ask you to disappear. It invites you to show up whole.